Howdy, all of you delicious people. I'm here today to review Peacemaker Season 1, Episode 8. So ever the opportunist is Warner Brothers. God, like the cash grab that every single Warner Brothers thing is to go into, where it's like, hey, like we have to promote these two movies coming out, and so we have to kind of go on and try to figure out a way to kind of connect those. And I'm like, you know what? Can we just leave a show the way it is? Because really, the use that we kind of have for those characters anyways was a waste. We really have it where, yeah, this show overall, I found it to be fun, but I also, like, found it to just kind of be deflating at points. I kind of found it to just be boring at some points where I'm like, man, how many times can you just have a person just kind of doing something that is to just be like a waste of a chunk of time within this show? So, like, to me, I don't find this season finale to be all like, yeah, like I feel good towards the end of this. I was just like, okay, I guess this is a natural way for us to just kind of end this season. And kind of give us something more interesting for season 2. But, like, I can also just go on and just kind of, like, I'm like, yeah, Peacemaker, woo, it's over now. Just, like, this season finale wasn't all that eventful, sadly enough. And, like, it seems when I get into spoilers, there's not much that's really going to have me, like, really branch out and be like, yeah, like, I loved this part, and I really just, yeah. It just feels like they were kind of, like, just wrapping up or finishing this up to where we don't even have Peacemaker in the helmet throughout this whole entire last episode until we get to, like, the very end. With kind of Peacemaker and Vigilante just kind of playing around again. But yeah, I'm just, like, this was kind of a weak finale. But considering shows are hard to finish up, they're hard to write, and trying to put out 8 shows is a difficult task. But at least I can enjoy this show a little bit better than some of the HBO Max other shows. Or even, like, I can enjoy this a little bit better than even some CW products that are being delivered right now. So there is that kind of throw out there to just say, like, well, should I go on and watch Peacemaker? Like, I would say, like, watch the early stages of it and then kind of especially if people are kind of waiting for the last season to really find out if they should go and watch this show. I would say watch the early stages of it and just kind of see if you want to invest in this. Or some people might have fallen out by a certain number of episodes, because that's a possibility too. Because people could probably easily understand where all this show was going, and so they just kind of give up. And I could fully understand that. We also have the comic book thing of, if you're naturally assuming that anyone is ever going to die upon the show, really, I would just assess that no matter what happens with a person, if they get horrifically killed for whatever reason, like if their head is chopped off, if like they're not actually dead and they're never going to be. So with that said, let's just go on to the spoilers of the Peacemaker finale. Because it's about that time to say that let's go into spoiler time. It's about that time we get to spoil this HBO Max show. So, Peacemaker. So we go on into this last episode, and we have the guy who, like, we don't even know what exactly his name is at this point. So, like, I'm sorry, didn't they call Peacemaker Michael at some point? Or maybe is that his brother's name? Because in this episode, they end up calling Peacemaker, like, Christopher. And I'm like, so what the is this guy's name? I'm just so confused who this guy's actual name was or alias was. But at this point, I really just don't care. I'm just going to keep calling him Peacemaker or John Cena anyways. Because it doesn't matter really at this point. Because there is no real origin stories. We get little pits and little bits and little flashes and little whatevers. But we still never really got like an origin story that I really cared about within this character, and that should have been the main focus all along. To give us an origin story of this character. Which a lot of people would say, oh yeah, they did it. No, not really. So Peacemaker in this episode is to now, if his father is not only dead, we're now having Peacemaker's father haunting him from the grave. As if this is like Amazing Spider-Man, and we have Dennis Leary consistently popping in as a ghost, just looking at Peter Parker like... We're having Augie be the ghost of and his name is John Cena. Peacemaker. We're having Augie coming in as a spiritual ghost. And I'm like, of course, because hey, like, if you want to kind of keep a character in a show, might as well have him come in as a ghost to just kind of haunt John Cena and have him maybe go on and have him like build up to like conquering this spirit or this ghost or whatever. So anyways, we transition on here to have all these characters, and so the funniest thing, which a lot of people could say is stupid about the show, we have, of course, Peacemaker talking to Leota, and so Leota is still apologizing for what she had done, and Peacemaker and Vigilante are farting around her every time she starts to talk, which I thought was the funniest thing about this, because I'm a fart joke person, and really just to consistently have somebody be like, hey, what was that? Oh, I'm sorry, what? Oh, my bad. Oh, what? That was the funniest thing of this episode. Nothing really mattered after that. So we have both Peacemaker and Vigilante who are making a plan of attack to go on and kill this ranch barn, whatever cow thing that isn't really a cow. It's a big, massive bug of a cow. So it doesn't really matter. So we have, of course, Peacemaker lining up the last bit of all of his helmets, which I'm sure, like, what's going to happen when Peacemaker is just going to run out of helmets? Because Peacemaker is to easily mention that Peacemaker was to kill the guy who made the helmets, so, like, what is Peacemaker going to have, like, left as far as his arsenal by the end of this first season? Unless someone can conveniently start making these helmets again, which I'm sure there's going to be someone, right? There has to be. It's the only thing that makes sense in the show. Or Peacemaker is going to make his own helmets. I'm sure Amanda Waller has some like tech thing, or there's some blueprints or something left over. They're probably going to find a bunch of blueprints in maybe Peacemaker's dimensional locket or locker thing where all the helmets were placed. Probably, right? So we go on and we have John Cena, and his name is John Cena. We have Peacemaker telling these guys about these helmets, where we have the Sonic Boom helmet, we have the anti-gravity helmet that floats away as they're to say activate anti-gravity, and the helmet flies off, and we have a human torpedo helmet, which is to basically kill anyone who pretty much wears it, or is to pretty much injure anybody badly if they are to wear it, which, okay, not quite sure what happens to Leota in this episode then. So we go on, and they're trying to come up with this master plan to have Eagly just fly by this ranch and drop this sonic boom helmet. And so, like, Peacemaker is trying to tell Eagly what to do, and they're like, seriously, do you really think that that eagle can understand you? And Peacemaker's like, hey, shut up. Like, he's our only opportunity to get this helmet to this ranch. Because he started mouthing off about Green Arrow and saying like, hey man, if we had somebody who is an archer here, we can go and shoot this helmet and whatever. And they're like, well, yeah, but like we don't have like a Green Arrow on our team. And it's like, well, yeah, because you probably won't have a Green Arrow anytime soon, because that's a CW show. But it's cool to have that reference. And I'm sure Stephen Amell will be like, hey, yeah, they referenced me on the show, as if I care. Because I'm sure it'll just be like, Stephen Amell probably will go on in a Facebook somewhere like, hey, yeah, they referenced me on Peacemaker. Because technically, anytime anyone is to still think of Green Arrow, they immediately think of Stephen Amell. They don't think of anybody else. I don't care if they recast the guy. I don't care if we have a DCEU version of Green Arrow, that's not Stephen Amell. And of course, to be this other variation of this character, I'm always going to think of Stephen Amell as Green Arrow. It's just the way I've been built. And the way I think of it, they should just have a Green Arrow movie where Stephen Amell is Green Arrow. Just to kind of, even though they finished up that character, we can still have a Green Arrow movie that is done by Stephen Amell, because that would make a lot of sense. As well as Grant Gustafson should have been the Flash at some point, but maybe he will in the Flash movie, so that way they can go on and, of course, if you're going to have multiple Flashes in a movie, why not have the show Flash? Justifyingly, that makes a lot of sense. So, anyways, we go on and we have Eagly, who is to kind of fly off with the helmet. And so now we go on and we had these people trust an eagle, and it didn't work out. So we go on and we have this entire group that now is desperate to now still have to go on and find this sonic boom helmet. And we, of course, have Peacemaker going and seeing the ghost of his dad. And so Peacemaker is trying to whip out this poisonous dart gun to splidoo upon his dad with this dart to kill him for a second time. Because he's not going to whip out his gun, because heaven forbid you kind of waste a bullet on a ghost. So I'm kind of wondering if season 2 we're going to have Peacemaker who's trying to like dissolve this ghost of his father. And maybe Peacemaker will go on and meet up with some characters that we know throughout the DCEU or the DC universe, and like dispel this ghost of Augie. Might be fun, just to have this kind of temporary character being used in here, because I desperately have always been wanting that. And then the one thing that they give us this special guest star stars within this episode, I'm just like, really? Like, they couldn't have had something a lot more interesting than the garbage characters, of which that I don't care about, to sell another movie. Yay! So we go on into this episode, and so we go on, and after Augie is to disappear, we all of a sudden have Harcourt that is seeing, of course, Peacemaker's helmet. And she's like, oh, you found it. So we go on here, and we, of course, have the master plan of basically just having John, because I guess he's the most unrecognizable person within the group, to make his way into this ranch to deliver this helmet. And so while he's doing that, he's talking to the group the whole entire time. And I'm like, why wouldn't anybody notice this guy talking to anybody? But it is what it is. So we go on and we have John, who, of course, is, and not John Cena, the other John. We have John going on and kind of walking in, and just like the weirdest whatever. And like we also have John who's asking the guys, it's like, well, hey, like, will anybody like kind of ask me any questions, because maybe these aliens don't even speak English. And the guys are like, no, like, you'll be fine. So I guess John has never seen one of these aliens up close or hear them talk at any point. So John goes on, is to deliver this helmet and is to walk out while he's also seeing this cow. And so he's like, oh my god. We, of course, have John, who makes it into the ranch, and immediately he ralphs. And we, of course, have Peacemaker, who has a gag reflex. And so we have, of course, John, who goes on, delivers his helmet, walks out. All of a sudden, the detective Larry is to stop John here, because Larry has an extremely important question to ask John. And I'm like, what was the point of this dialogue? So we go on and we desperately have Detective Larry that goes on and asks John here. It's like, well, hey, why does this man's facial hair like not have the right color? And so John goes on and he's like, well, here's the thing. Like, this guy goes on and consistently dyes his beard, but is to kind of do it fairly cheaply, so it just doesn't come out right, and the color doesn't look right. And so, because this guy is massively underpaid, and so, like, we had this kind of sympathy for the John character of why he was called Dyebeard before. But I honestly thought that the name was cool. Like, I actually thought that that name was something that John can turn around and just be like, yeah, I'm Dyebeard, yeah. Like, that could really be his name, and that could have been a really cool thing. But instead, like, we had to make it like a thing to like give John sympathy if we've ever not liked this character for whatever goofy reason. So we go on here and we of course have it where Peacemaker is just like, oh, like, I made fun of his beard. So we also had a moment where Leota was calling Amanda Waller to see if she could get the Justice League members to show up to kind of fight out this alien menace of a thing, because we have a group of people that are to just be like, what is the point of having this group if if we have to call them the Justice League also? You would think that there's plenty of enough members, but we just kind of have a pointless thing going on with the Justice League anyways. So we go on and we have Peacemaker that eventually is to have Leota activate the sonic boom. And so we start to have this helmet go on and destroy this ranch, further and further destroying it, but not exactly killing the cow right away. And so Leota is going and consistently activating the sonic boom within the walkie that's kind of duct taped into the helmet. So all the charges are dead, and so now Peacemaker and all this group are to go on to try and kill every butterfly character that they can. So we go on and everybody's to get slayed and murdered and whatever, besides Detective Sophie, who is Goth, who is to still be by the cow. So everybody's getting laid out. Everybody's getting shot. We have Peacemaker with this shield, I guess, that is to just be like, why hasn't he had this thing any other episode? Like, why did they just wait to the very last episode to just kind of dust this thing out? Um, would this make this character look too much like a Captain America kind of character, and that's maybe why? Not quite sure. We also had it where Peacemaker was to realize the gun that he had actually had a dove symbol on it, and so he's like, yeah, like I can shoot with this gun because it has the symbol of peace on it. So we go on, and while this battle is happening with all these people, we have Harcourt that goes down, and we have Vigilante that supposedly goes down, and we're naturally assuming that both of these characters are dead, right? Because we naturally assume that, right? They're not going to bring them back for season 2. This show and it for wanting to think like, oh yeah, they're actually going to kill somebody off in this show that isn't going to like be just some rando villain for this one season. And instead, we just turn around and find both Vigilante and Harcourt by the end of this episode in some hospital somewhere, and they're recovering. I'm like, fuck. Like, I get it, don't kill anybody off, because you can use them in a second season, and, like, hey, like, keep people working. I get that. But also don't make it seem like someone's going to get killed, just to turn around and play bullshit cards to just make people go, oh, that's my favorite character, and you're gonna kill them off? Huh? Just for you to turn around and just get swerved, like, oh no, of course they're not dead. I immediately thought that anyways. I wasn't thinking like, oh my god, they're gonna kill this character. No, because I know how comic book shows and movies work, where anybody who seems to be dead, they're not going to die. There's a lot of times where even if there is like a character that does die, I'm thinking like, oh well, there's probably a story reason why they're dead, and they're just gonna temporarily be dead. Like it's kind of like Batman who ends up dying in one of his episodes, and then he ends up getting like buried and all this stuff, and he ends up just kind of like this is a Batman Brave and the Bold episode where Batman ends up getting buried alive, and he ends up like astro projecting, and he goes into like the soul of like Red Arrow, and he talks to Green Arrow, and he's like, hey, like get me out of this grave. I'm losing air. And then all of a sudden like Batman is to go back into his body waiting to get unburied. So, and I'm assuming they're probably going to do that same thing for Peacemaker, just like, oh my god, he's dead. And then we're going to find out that there's a number of characters that they can kind of play with within the dead world. The dead world? Anyways, so we go on into this show, and we have Peacemaker that eventually is to make his way into this ranch, and is going down these flight of stairs, and he ends up kind of like crumbling under these kind of broken stairs, and he's just kind of like he's just kind of stuck under all this rubble. And so now we go on, and we have to have it to where someone is going to have to save him, and of course that's Leota, because Leota has kind of been the if anybody's gonna do anything, it's gonna be Leota. Like we had John do something in this episode, but like if anybody, like it seems like Leota is always going to kill people. She's always gonna take certain characters down, like Judo Master. Speaking of which, we have Judo Master do a cameo in this episode. Where all he does is to kind of see the carnage and the aftermath of what happens with all the butterfly people, and he's again eating a red hot Cheeto. Where's the bag? No sponsorship for this episode? I love red hot Cheetos. If Cheetos somehow, somewhere or another wants to sponsor me, I'd be happy to every single video that I'm in just eating red hot or Flamin' Hot Cheetos um, as a sponsor because I like those also. So maybe it's Cheetos. Maybe it's an off-brand. I don't know. But anyways, so but Judo Master kind of comes at the end after everybody else has kind of done their thing. So we have Leota that goes into this ranch as if Ashton Kutcher is going to show up anytime soon. Did anybody ever watch the show called The Ranch? I did. I enjoyed it. But we have Leota that goes in with the human torpedo helmet, and I'm like, okay, how is this going to go weirdly? How are they going to use this not exactly to the benefit, or how exactly is this character possibly going to get killed off by using this helmet? Because again, I'm just hoping for someone to die in the show that isn't a villain, or is to just kind of like give me this like real moment, like, oh, this person almost died, it almost happened. So, because season finale, so I'm just waiting for this to be just like Smallville, where every single episode somebody has to get knocked unconscious, and then like we end up having them like, oh, they're revived in the hospital just in time to save their life. That's what they did in Smallville for like years. Every time Clark Kent was to use his powers of being Superman, all of a sudden somebody's getting knocked unconscious every single episode. That's what I thought was funny about that show. And like Lex had to get knocked out, Chloe did, Lana did, everybody did. I was waiting for that to happen in Superman and Lois, but that never happened. Son of a bitch. Someone needed to get knocked unconscious in that show. It just needed to happen. Anyways, so Peacemaker is getting dug out by somebody, and we're immediately thinking it's Leota because she's going on and grabbing all this rubble, and we're thinking that Peacemaker is getting pulled up by Leota, and instead we end up finding out that it's Detective Sophie, it's Goff that's pulling Peacemaker out. So we go on, and it seems that Peacemaker is going to fight with the detective here, Goff. And instead we have Goff who's like, oh no, Peacemaker, like, let me touch your face and let me just tell you that, like, we're working together. Like, you just don't realize this. That Goff is trying to tell Peacemaker that she is trying to save planet Earth from its destruction, its own destruction, for how these people have treated this planet. Like, she's going to go on and try to save this world by taking control of it. Because these aliens were really trying to be helpful. They wouldn't take over a number of people. And also, they wouldn't have gone on and tried to use this diary against Peacemaker. So we have, of course, Peacemaker with this conundrum and like of going on and working with the butterflies to save this world and to save this cow from being killed by it being transported somewhere else so they can save the butterflies' food source. And so we go on and instead have it where Peacemaker is activating the human torpedo helmet from Leota, pushing Leota to just ram through this cow and create this big kind of bullet hole where all of a sudden Leota is like, oh my god, this is so fucking gross, as she's getting like splattered with all this juice and blood and whatever from this alien. And so we then have Peacemaker take down Goff and all the other left butterflies. And so we now have it where Peacemaker had mentioned that like he is to fight for like peace no matter how many people he has to kill. And this could have been the ultimate world peace, whatever, taken over by a evil butterfly overlord, but still would have been peace. But so all of a sudden we have it where Peacemaker and Leota are making it out. We ended up finding that John was going to go and try to work with Leota as Leota was going and taking these guns and just firing on all these people, all these butterflies, putting this helmet on, and then going into this ranch to try to use her human torpedo weapon, which she goes on and uses to just kind of like smack into this like thing of this cave or go on and like smack into things, and then go through the cow alien. So Peacemaker, as they're making their way out, we had John who was to break his leg by tripping over this fence. So Peacemaker goes on, grabs Harcourt, and is kind of like making their way out as they kind of completed this whole mission. All of a sudden, we have the Justice League that arrives at the last minute. A Justice League that only has a shadowy Superman and a shadowy Wonder Woman and no Batman and just the Flash and Aquaman. I wonder why only these two characters are really to be prominently showcased here. I wonder why. I wonder if they have a movie or a film coming out somewhere in the next 5 years, because who knows with kind of quarantine or kind of who knows with whether theaters are even going to show a movie at this point, or any number of these films are going to be forced into some kind of streaming somewhere somehow, because that's hence why Wonder Woman 84 didn't do all that well in sales, because a lot of people are like, I'll wait till it comes out on HBO Max. Definitely. So yeah, we just go on and have the same joke that I guess was to be used for Aquaman. That he basically F's fish, and Aquaman is like, I hate that rumor, and Barry is going on of like, well, yeah, the rumor and blah blah blah, and we have Aquaman who's like, F you, Barry, like so. Language that they probably couldn't have actually said in a Justice League movie, they can say here. So we of course have Peacemaker that's making it to a hospital, getting everybody checked out. Vigilante is to just say that he needs a nap, but he just kind of conks and falls over. So I guess Peacemaker has been by Harcourt's, not exactly bedside, but just kind of at the hospital for a number of days, kind of watching over Harcourt. And they go and hold hands and thinking that there's some potential between these two. And so we have Peacemaker and Leota, who, of course, is like they're kind of talking about the aftermath of all this. And Leota is to realize that Peacemaker could have had the peace he wanted if he would have worked with Goth. And Peacemaker is just like, no, no. Because Peacemaker would have known that the butterflies would have hurt a number of people to get the peace they needed. And so that would have probably led to a number of deaths or war or whatever if Peacemaker would have chosen the side of the butterflies. So we also had the moment where like one of the butterflies was trying to get inside of, of course, Harcourt, and like we have Leota who kind of pulls the bug out. So by the end of this, we have Peacemaker that's just kind of on his little trailer, and he's going on and he is to, I guess, feed one of these butterflies. And so I'm like, so are we going to have just kind of one of these butterflies that kind of jump into one of these bodies kind of randomly so that we can have another character that at some point is going to get used to our benefit or whatever? so they can still use this whole butterfly thing as just kind of a means to like, oh hey yeah, like we still have this one butterfly that we can kind of just inject into any character and like help these guys out at some point. That's what I'm assuming is going to happen for the story. So really, we just have Peacemaker and his ghostly dad Augie, and we just kind of have the eagle just kind of looking, and like that's how the show just ends, with Aquaman and Flash. Just why? Why are they? Why were they even there? Another cash grab, just like, oh my god, Aquaman and Flash are in the show. Oh my god, it's a DCEU connection. He already did that with Amanda Waller. So we also have Leota that is going on and confessing of what Amanda Waller has done. The Suicide Squad, uh, like kind of thing that Amanda Waller has done is also being put out there into the public via a press conference done by Leota, and Leota is spilling the beans on everything. So we go on and we have Leota that was also mentioning that diary was not actually the Peacemaker's, and that's kind of like kind of clearing Peacemaker's name. So we also have John that's going into Belle Reve, kind of employees only kind of section where he's going on and just kind of doing something on his laptop, and he's having, of course, that Peacemaker photo where he's like, yeah, just good times, good prices. So yeah, that's really it that happens within this show. Like that's all that happens to finish this up. I would say that I had fun with this show, but it's just DC is just gonna be DC with all their projects, and I just can't. I can't always just be like glad that I've seen all these things. I just have to be very objective about them. But uh, really, I would say that this show is probably a lot better than some later seasons of other kind of DC things. Because I really hated uh, like the later seasons of Titans and so on and so forth, and I just like I would still say that like yeah, Doom Patrol the first season, but after that it was just unwatchable. Um, but yeah, so it'll be nice to see what future DC show they're gonna bust out. I hopefully sometime soon after this thing is to be over. But like I don't think that's gonna be anytime soon. So like I guess that's it for DC stuff. I'm sure it's just kind of wait and see for what they bring out next, which is probably Flash or Aquaman sometime within the year. I'm hoping, unless there's going to be some kind of tweaks or changes with release dates, because already there's still movies that are still thinking about getting delayed. Like Morbius is still getting delayed here. We're still having a number of films that are kind of like, yeah, not quite sure. So more than likely, there's probably going to get certain movies that are probably not going to get delayed till probably uh, probably right around the end of this year, probably, or maybe in the summer. So, if anything, we should probably just be expecting movies to be dropping probably by the summertime, if not anything else. But it still seems like we are getting new releases. It's just kind of a slower thing now, I guess. I don't know why there is kind of a slower release, but maybe people are just seeing the projections of movies and whatever, and they're like, yeah, no. But yeah, so with that said, I'm going to get out of here. Bye, everybody. Bye, everybody.